Greetings, greetings, greetings. Dumela, Saubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Obshin, Dubra Ota, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Buenas noches, bonsoir, and what's going on? Welcome to another episode of The Digital Couch. My name is Doriel Inez Larrier of Larry's Education and Resource Network, where I plant seeds to help you grow. This is season 2, episode 4 of the Digital Couch, and I'm so excited to have our guest on with us this evening. Now, you may not have heard, or I don't know, depending on the circles that you roll in, you may have heard of the use of flowers, the use of now, we eat their stems, depending on what it is. We eat their leaves. We sometimes even eat their roots. But what about the pure essence of that flower? Does it actually have therapeutic properties or mood shift, body shifting options to our countenance? So tonight on the digital couch, she'll be sitting right here, is an amazing, amazing sister. Her name is Renee K. Smith. And wait, there's more. I've been practicing her name. So watch this. Wait, here we go. Ready? Here she go. Greetings.
Greetings. How are you?
Yay! We're fabulous. We're fabulous. So now let me reintroduce her. Her name is not only Renee K. Smith, but drum roll, please.
Yay.
It is Ifagbaye Eshbola Ayelagbe Egbisina. I did well. I was
You
practicing.
did. Thank you. It was beautiful.
I was practicing. Now, to most of you here, you all know me as Doriel, but I actually have another name. And so Sister Renee is most likely going to regard me as such, and she will do just that. Well, welcome, Sister Renee. Welcome to the Digital Couch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so
Excellent.
excited, actually.
So those people who know, you know what's going on. We always have something to sip with. So make sure that you have your teacup or your favorite mug. Make sure you you have a pen and paper to take some notes. And of course, sharing is caring. So whether or not you're watching live or on the replay, please invite some other people who just might be interested or know a little bit about this topic tonight. You know that we are streaming on 2 platforms, on Facebook and YouTube. And so you can catch this, you can share this with whomever you'd like. And if you're watching on the replay, please hashtag replay. If you hear something that pops out to you, something that it would be considered resonating to the soul, or it's a question or a comment that you may want to drop in the comments, please do so. And Sister Renee or myself will respond to it in a timely manner in order to answer the questions that you have or address the issues that you have. So, Sister Renee, please tell me, what is it that you do? What are these little flower things that you work with? How in the world did you get in touch with this work?
Yes. So I am a flower essence and Reiki practitioner. I consider myself a vibrational medicine person because most of the work that I do is in vibrational medicine. But also, what I do is thinking about how we tap into plant intelligence to transform our lives, right? So, before we get completely to flowers, we first have to think about the first seed of time, right? And so, every plant that we see right now, even the spider plant in my background, they are descendants of the first seed of time. And plants still exist, which means every and all things that have occurred, they have adapted to and figured out how to continue. And so there's so much to learn from them and to learn from the earth by this ability to do so. So when we talk about plants, we say that flowers are the highest concentration of the intelligence of that plant. And so unlike when you take herbal actions, flower essences really works on what we call our etheric body, right? The vibrational understanding of who we are. So we have our physical body, and then we have, many times people like to call it auras, and that you have your chakras, which are all your energy centers. These are places in the body that really makes up our whole. where flower essences work is in our subconscious. So we call it vibrational medicine because we're taking the vibration of the flowers and we're taking them in either orally or through sprays or through skin soaps or however we're taking them. And they're helping for us to, what I like to say, create new inroads in our brain, right? Because one of the things that's really important to know is that our brain is our first apothecary. If something hurts, if something doesn't hurt, if we think we're sick, we don't want to be sick, the first thing is to say it out loud, I'm not sick. And the body and the brain starts trying to figure out, okay, wait, she just said we're not sick. Okay, what do we need to do to make sure that this vessel isn't sick? And so that's really the way that the brain works. And so this concept of neuroplasticity, right? The idea that we can create new brain pathways by really kind of going down deep and excavating old emotions or old triggers that may be sitting there in our subconscious that really affects the way that we live our everyday life. And so that's where flower essences work.
So I have a question about that because now, again, if those of you who are watching this live or the replay, if there's any question that comes up, please drop it in the chat and I'll be able to see some of them. So you just said something that triggered me, and that is, I guess you would, let's say, like memory based on scent or fragrances. So what's the connection to, this may sound funny, but the scent of Vicks, which really is the scent of menthol, eucalyptus, because every time I smell it, I think of a time that I may have not felt well, and God bless mama and grandma who just slathered it all over me, right? So the scent of that reminds me of transitioning into a state of better wellness. So is that connected?
It definitely is, because the way in which the brain works, right, is that we have an experience, and this is a lot longer conversation, but we have three brains, right? We have these experiences from time to time. Our heart, which is one of actually the one brain that has more sensory understanding than any other places. So we have our head brain, our heart brain, and our gut brain. Our head brain really is where that catalogs all of our experiences. But it is our heart that really has an opportunity to kind of go out and understand and feels it and tells the brain how to actually react or catalog. So if you're having kind of this olfactory memory, it's connected to this memory, but inside of that memory means that there may be a core belief in that memory that's upsetting you. And so where flower essences would work is, okay, let's kind of start thinking about, well, what could it be about this core belief or this core memory that's really triggering your body to kind of have this understanding. And it doesn't mean that from time to time we don't have things that we're adverse to. But sometimes the things that we're adverse to are actually really good for us. So trying to figure out like where that is and where that memory is, and trying to also figure out what is another way for you to interact with menthol or camphor that actually changes that memory. Again, you have that one memory, we get to the place of where you're starting to figure out, well, what's the core belief behind why this memory kind of triggers this uneasy feeling for me? And then how do we have another experience that kind of will trump that? And that's kind of where that works.
Okay. All right. Now, how did you get started in this work? And what drove you to it? Like what said, oh my goodness, I need to study the essence of flowers?
I was a kinesthetic dancer, right? So my body was very much like what I did when I was in my 20s and 30s, early 30s, dancing and teaching and all of that. And so the birth of my daughter, working in community, working with children pretty much all my life. However, when you have your own, it changes how you actually function, because this is no longer, aunties are great because you give the children back. And, but now I had a baby and she was with me all the time. And there were probably some
hours of the day.
And I think there were some things that I hadn't been saying or expressing. And so my body started to hold on to it. And so I started first numbing, like a part of my neck started numbing, and then it started going down to my shoulder. Then my hand was going numb. Then at one point, my entire left side went numb. Yep, whole thing. And being somebody who's very in touch with her body, like I'm having trouble moving, it becomes an issue. So I actually ended up saying, okay, let me go for acupuncture, because I had acupuncture treatment all through my pregnancy, to really kind of help with energy moving and having to do extra stretches and so on and so forth. At the time, I was working with Lindsay Fauntleroy, who is from Ocean and Rivers, and she was my acupuncturist. And so at the end of the session, she was like, you should try flower essences. I was like, okay. She said, I think you would be a really good candidate for flower essences. And if nothing else, they got a little brandy in them. So just take them. You'll, whatever you feel like taking them, just take them. I was like, ha ha ha, sure. So she gave me the
Mhm.
bottle. I took it. I started recognizing that certain things were coming up. I was either expressing them fully, or I was writing a little bit more. The pain started to go away. My body started coming back into balance. And I was like, huh, I've worked in community for so long, and I think that this is what I want to be able to give. And so probably about 6 months, I was, seeing her regularly. Actually, I saw her for a couple of years, and then I decided to go into the training program. And so about almost 3 or 4 years ago, I started, actually practicing, and then creating the business. And so the business itself started with really looking at plant intelligence from the perspective of flower essences, and has expanded since to looking at all parts of a plant. So from flower to root, because I'm also doing the other piece, which is the herbal piece. So flower essences really works on the etheric body, and then the herbal piece really works on the inside and the vascular. And so those two pieces together really allows for us to come into balance.
So can you repeat one thing? You said that wait, I just lost it. You said the flower essences work on the ethereal body?
Etheric body, or the vibration outside of the body.
So how does someone measure that part of their body? Like how is it recognized? How is it identified? Because you say it's vibrational, then it's not necessarily something that you can see under a microscope. It's not necessarily something that you could see, if let's say you do quote unquote an operation or you go.
hmm
So how do you recognize it? How does one say, oh, like your vibrations are high or low or shifting or transitional or whatever the phrases are?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is recognized, specifically if you're doing flower essences, is that you can recognize changed behavior. So one of the things that we're trained in is kind of watching and hearing how people are speaking, right? So I always share with folks, if someone's taking blackberry, I always know, right? And before they may have, said, I can't get my projects done, I feel like I'm procrastinating. If you take blackberry, there's absolutely no way that you're going to do that, because that's blackberry's job. Blackberry is like, we're going to get this done. We're going to get it now. You're not going to stop until you're finished. That is the acuteness of blackberry. So I can
We
always
need
hear it.
we need to get some blackberry. You got
I
some.
have, you have some projects, huh? Ah, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Some blackberry.
Oh,
Hey,
Okay. I was like, what happened?
let's continue. The
Yeah,
devil is a lie.
no worries.
Here we go. All right. So you said that you will see a shift in behavior. You said that BlackBerry is the thing to sort of get your whole life right.
It'll definitely help you with not procrastinating. I think the same thing goes true for another flower that we use a lot, which is century, right? And so it's really good around creating boundaries. And so when I share it with people or when people choose it, I like to say that it's really not about you having a no boundary, meaning I'm saying no to others. It's really developing a really healthy relationship with saying yes to yourself. And so in hearing someone who's taking, Century, you'll hear, I said yes to this. I said yes to this. I didn't really feel like doing that. So I told them that I'm not going to be able to do that. I said yes to this. I said yes, and so part of it is the training of knowing what to listen for as people are taking it. And then one of the reasons why I also ended up going into Reiki is because that is another healing modality that uses energy. So when I get a chance to put them together, I'm able to also now kind of read the body using that technique to kind of figure out where there are spots in the body where there may be blockages or illness or dis-ease sitting so that we can, have both of those things work together.
Okay. What type of training do you do for this work?
Well, the certification program for flower essences is pretty intense. We have, 3 or 4 semesters of just work and reading and just learning the process and the technique. And then we have case studies that we have to analyze, and we also have to create 3 case studies ourselves. And so that's what's looked at in terms of if we're ready to go out into the world and do it. We're looking that, they're also looking at not just the flowers that we chose and the way in which we worked with our clients, but also how are we creating formulas? How are we continuing to learn about the flowers? Are we helping with discovering new flowers? Which also happens, there are so many plants in the world and so many of them flower and many of them have never been researched, and so if there's a flower that's growing in your backyard or it's really great to find out about the flower and then start looking at research around creating an essence and seeing how and tracking how it works for yourself, sometimes getting a small control group to see how it's working for them, and then writing up that information so that other people know that this is a flower that we may want to start using in the industry itself.
Wow. So it's something that is still growing, no pun
Mhm.
intended, and still expanding and in essence flowering. Oh, didn't plan on saying that. But right. So I mean that's amazing if you're gonna say that there are there's flora that has not been identified, and that's surprising to me, but okay. But if it's then also growing in your backyard, like I'm presuming that something that will be growing in your backyard is there because it was either planted or something in the area, of course, transferred it there. But anything
Mhm.
in the area would actually already have been identified. Although if you're moving from a country to another country or something like that, then maybe you're also transferring flora. So how does someone, let's say I identify a new plant or flower, and how do I get the essence out of it? Is this like distilling practice? Are you able to do it yourself?
Yeah, flower essences are pretty simple to make. We use water, as I always say, water is so powerful that it holds memory, right? And
Mm,
so it is able to hold the memory of the life force of this plant. And so water as the memory holder. And then we usually, the catalyst for really imbuing that energy into the water is usually the sun, except for the times when we have a couple of moon flowers where we need to use the moon also as a very powerful catalyst. And so basically, you would take the flower and place it in the water, and over a period of time of it sitting in the sun, you'll see that it becomes slightly translucent. And with that translucence, lets us know that it's now been
oh,
transferred into the water. And so usually you will, that first batch that you would make is considered a mother batch. So it means it can be extremely strong. And so usually you have a dilution process that you're taught to kind of dilute it to a place where the dosage will work for people. And I've had people take it right as they got it, and they were like, "This is really overwhelming." I was like, "Yep, you gotta dilute it. You can't just take it like."
Wow.
And then you usually bottle it, and put a preservative in there, so it's usually alcohol or brandy. And then we also have, we have companies that do this as well. So like Flower Essence Society and Alaska Essences and Spirit of the Tree. There are quite a few that have essence companies where they're cultivating essences, and as practitioners, we're able to order them as we need them, as we also discover them. Like, oh, I saw such and such plant. Let me see if one exists. And someone may have it, and we were like, okay, I may not make my own on this go round, but at some point I want to be able to cultivate this flower as well.
So now I'm having a little flashback to probably not necessarily my grandparent, but just stories of elders from the diaspora, or stories of stories that transferred, or just crossed from the waters, and having people talk about, like, you take this herb, and like, again, like, you'll sit it, either you'll make a poultice, right? Which is and let me see if I know a little bit about this, right? You take poultices, which are like herbs, or plants, or parts of plants or roots, putting them into some sort of like a cloth bag, and then soaking them in a either like a hot water, or soaking them in maybe in a spirit, like an alcohol, and then applying it, or what have you. Or it's a salve, and so you're grinding it. Let me see if I can get this together, right? You're grinding it and then putting it in either like a carrier oil, or you're putting it again into like either a spirit or a water, and then like coating or rubbing it in. Okay, am I?
You're there. Yes, you are there. The salve can also include like shea butters. So you can
Right,
do it so that you add like beeswax and things like that, so it holds a little bit longer onto the
right.
skin. And then also when you add the spirits, you can also create it as a tincture that you can take inside of your body.
Tinctures, right. So, okay, all right. So now these unfortunately, these, I'll say, home remedies, but these, what would we call them? Applications, have been lost over decades, centuries, and some people today, like our grandparents, those who are still on this earth, might have some connection depending on where they were raised. If they were raised in the Caribbean, if they're raised on the continent, thank God we have more people coming across. And so we have more direct connection. If they're raised in the South, right? If they're raised in hill country, no matter what hill you're talking about, whether it's the hills of the Caribbean or the hills of
Right.
Appalachia, or the South Sea Islands, and there are these stories of people saying, hey, okay, make sure that you go pay attention to sister so-and-so, or grandmama so-and-so, or the griot this, or great grandpapa who always has stuff growing in their back. And then they have these little bottles, or these apothecaries, like, the brown bottles. And so unfortunately, there's like a mysticism. There's like this, oh, be careful of, the person that says they got a little drop of this and a ground of this, but then prior to there being established hospitals, this was the work. Where did that work get thwarted? Where did that work get like pishad, and like pushed away?
When capitalism decided that it needed everyone to pay attention to it. So when you talk about, I took some of the work that I do is actually in postpartum for mothers, to really kind of support the same way I have a whole product line based on me just working with mothers and them telling us, this is what I need, and creating specific products for them. And so when you hear the story of the Black midwives, you hear an opportunity for where they were ensuring, during a time when our people couldn't go to hospitals, they were the only care. But when hospitals were created and they realized that they weren't able to maximize their profits or ensure that everyone was coming to them because both Black women and white women wanted the Black midwife. The
Hmm.
medical industry decided that Black midwives didn't know what they were doing, that they had filthy equipment. I mean, I've read stories where they would say, they're too old to know what's going on. Mind you, the hospitals were using some of their techniques in the hospital, but the only way for them to have the hospitals be seen as the authority was by putting down the Black midwife and this idea of natural herbalism. And so that's kind of where we fell off the train, and we're still trying to catch up, right? And part of it becomes an issue when in 2022 we still have Black women dying in hospitals from giving birth, in hospitals that supposedly are better than third world countries, but somehow we can't seem to get that right, right? So there is a disconnect around the profession itself. There's a disconnect around who made the choice and why that choice was made. That choice wasn't made because of health. That choice was made because of capitalism. So that becomes the first place to kind of figure that out. And so I think for me, when I sit in this work, I always tell people that this is an ancestral calling, right? When I say that the plants sometimes will wake me up in the middle of the night and I won't know why I need to work with a plant, but it will stay on my mind until I get it. Sometimes I get it as an herb, like a dried herb, and then somehow I end up seeing it as a fresh plant all of a sudden. And then I have to bring that plant into my home and I need to sit with it and sit and say, okay, what is it that you want me to learn? There's something about you. Not only is there something about you, but someone needs you. I'm going to come into contact with someone who needs you. And there's a reason why you're coming to me in this way so that I can learn about you, so that I have the knowledge that I need, or at least the sensitivity that I need in order to bring you forward. And that is the way that plant intelligence really works for us. If we've uncalcified our third eye, the way that the Black midwives, the way that our first ancestors, the way that our all of our healers were doing this work, was that they were doing it based on them being able to have a real connection with the plants, and the plants always showing up when we need them.
I think that's a beautiful explanation, because I was about to, I guess, to give voice to those people who would say that's a bunch of hoo-ha, right? There's no science in that. But the moment that you say that there, yes, is an ancestral calling, and I've in my own part of this work, I like to work with essential oils. But those that drive me, those that call my name, if you will, are not the ones that, in terms of, they're not like I'll say flowery, but I mean like sweet notes. The sweet notes don't attract me. It's the very herbaceous, the very savory, and sometimes they're pungent. And I'm still learning my terminology here. But the pungent scents, like basil, oregano, what's like a ginger, or like the peppermint or the eucalyptus or the tea tree, all of those fragrances lift me up because they remind me of the image of let's say my mother's mother, in her little garden, in suburbia, and just seeing all these different plants and just saying, wow, there's just something so special about that. I'm not really sure what it is. But somehow, some way, I want to be connected to that. And without
those plants that you named, those scents that you named, are all very powerful healers. They're all antiviral. They're all antifungus. They're all immune boosters, right? So yeah, we are going to be attracted to the things that we don't understand that we know, because it's a part of our what we call in what Mama Catherine Dunham had named as blood memory, right? We have it in dance and movement, and we have it in all of these things. Like, these are things that come to us without us having to know that that's the way that we're supposed to move, but we just do it because that's how we're connected.
Got it. When you say Catherine Dunham, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. You dance. So, okay, right. I'm connected. I'm connected. I did that work too. I did that work too. All right, good, good. So for those of you who are just popping in, this is Renee K. Smith of Akika Flower Essences. Please make sure that you follow her. Now you hail, you don't really hail in Facebook land. You're on Insta. You're on the gram. I
I
understand.
am.
So
I
I got
have some
you over
Facebook
here.
though.
What?
I said I do have some Facebook. I just don't live here much
You
anymore.
don't live here. But I'm very blessed and honored that you decided to live here today. So please, people, make sure that you follow Akika Flower Essences. Now, tell us about some of the services, products that you have. How can people, not just how can they get in touch with you, but when they want to come to you, they
Mhm,
want to come to you in order to do what?
mhm. Definitely. So I offer virtual and in-person sessions. The virtual sessions we kind of can do wherever, and those usually are flower essence consultations. And so I think when people think about why I would need flower essences, I like to ask people like, do you feel stuck? Do you feel like your energy isn't all the way, the way it needs to be? Do you feel like there's a decision that you need to make and you're not really sure which way to go? Are you feeling like you're not grounded in your body? Like these can all be things that people may just take as, oh, it's just the way that I feel today. But it may actually be a sign that something else is going on with you. Are you having are you having and experiencing extreme behavior? Meaning you're either eating all the time or you're not eating at all. Are you not recognizing that you're not eating at all? Like all of these things are the ways in which our body and our psyche kind of lets us know that dis-ease has settled somewhere, and we
Hmm.
probably need to start thinking about, how to help that. So flower essences is usually one of the things that I would start with first. And so we can do that virtually, and you can book a session on the site. I also do free consultations as well, as people just want to get more information on it before they book a session for themselves or for others. And just to also let you know that flower essences can be used for any age. So when I was doing my training, one of the things that I love to do is, because I worked with young people and youth, I was also doing flower essences for younger students. So I started at around age 4 all the way up. And so, little people are good too, because, our birth stories and the way that we were born into the world really have an effect on how our personalities are developing, right? Children who were born of cesarean and those who were born of natural birth, they all have a different understanding of the way in which they attach themselves to their mother. Those who have been in foster care or have felt or had abandonment issues will have a different way of how they, walk in the world. And so really being able to kind of get to that even from a smaller, when they're a child who cries a lot. We're not sure why they're crying. Sometimes it's because there's a place in them trying to understand how to verbalize what they need, and they're not able to yet do that. And so us finding a flower that really kind of helps them with starting to develop that skill. So flower essences can be used across the board. I like to use them a lot also for transitions, especially when children are going from summertime to back to school, because they have been going to bed at whatever time they want. And now you want them to get up to go to school, and they're like, "Why are you talking to me?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's a
Most of
really
y'all know
great.
what I do during the day, so you know I have this issue all the time.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
it's really good for all of those kinds of things. It's good for, youth who are trying to figure out, do I want to go to college? Do I want to start this career? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? All of those, they're flowers for all of that. So it's really, really amazing to kind of do that. And so virtually you can do a session. I also do in-person sessions. I do them every other week. And if you go to the website, you'll see that's a part of Akika Akika Wellness or Community Wellness. And so those are flower essence and Reiki sessions that are combined, where people get the opportunity to have a Reiki session after talking a little bit about what may be going on with them. And so it features some of the sprays from Akika Flower Essence to kind of help them with moving through their processes. So those are the main kind of services and consultations that I do. And then, of course, on the website, you'll see there are lots of products. A lot of the products actually have been born out of working with clients. They say, I have this, or I'm seeing this, very interesting um, hive or something come up on my skin, or I just gave birth and this is what I'm feeling. And so us really kind of figuring out different products to kind of help that. And usually when I'm doing it custom for someone, there's a bigger group. And so what I found is being able to do a custom piece, but also kind of thinking through, well, someone else may be able to use this. What other product can we create for that, that kind of thing? So that's the other piece.
So then let me ask you this, because now it sounds like you are definitely part of a holistic wellness team,
Mhm.
right? So for those of you who are still following, Sister Renee is one of the people who I will reshare this information out for my other business. So those people know I have two businesses. One is Here Learn to Grow You, and then the other is Seeds of Imani. So actually, Sister Renee would regard me as, what's my
Mama,
title now?
Mama Imani.
I've been elevated to mamahood. Now, in the community, there's a different relationship that we all have with one another. Now, those of you who are born and reared through the African diasporic community, there are relational ties that we have to each other. So I don't necessarily I may call someone who is my peer in terms of age just their name, but I would also call them sister. And so when I walked into a different room a couple of weeks ago, and all of these beautiful women were there doing their work, and some of them are going to be featured here in season 2. Someone just said, "Oh, Mama Imani." And I was like, "Who are you talking about?" They're like, "You." I said, "What?" I have been elevated to the mamahood. Oh, I feel good and special. Um, So here's is one of the last questions, and this is where it probably gets sticky, and I'm sure you've already had to address this question. What part of the team, what part of the medical team, or what part of the wellness team, where do you fit in? Number one, where do you fit in? Do you feel that people will choose or have a problem selecting you to be a part of that team? And what pushback, if any, do you get from Western medicine? Because as you say, like, I can work with or apply the flower essences to children as young as 4 years old. In my head, I'm thinking, so what about regular medicine, and how is it different? Now, you don't have to go back to that because we already covered that. But in terms of the pushback that you might get from people about using this alternative form of medicine or wellness tools, how does that sit, and what kind of responses do you have to give?
So I think the first thing is for us to not call it alternative anymore, because that was the first way in which we became disconnected from our own healing practices, right? It was never an alternative. All of it was holistic, because as much as we wanted to go see the Western doctor, we also had to go and see our shaman. Both of those things existed on the same plane, right? And part of that, one of the things I love about coming full circle, right, is, there are studies that have been done where in places in Africa, actually in Senegal, because I'm doing some herbal study work there, that some their medical doctors have to take herbology and a year of study with traditional medicine people before they can get their final certification, because that is an important part of understanding that the community that they're going to treat, if they're going into, villages that don't have hospitals,
Right.
that great grandmother that's 102 years old is not going to travel 7 hours to get to the hospital, but she is going to walk to her front or backyard and pick something that she knows is going to help her. And that in the time when that doctor may have to go make a house call, they better understand what that medicine is that's sitting in her yard. And understand that that's what she will want to take first. And that is how we will need to treat her. So for myself, personally, I'm of the firm belief that if I'm to be on your team, you will call me and I will call you, and we'll be good, right? That those connections are deeper than what you see in front of you. I think the other piece of, thinking about the pushback is part of what stops us from being well in Western medicine is that Western medicine doesn't take into account the entire person, right? So when people say, oh, we're talking about science, remember that there was a period of time where even in Western medicine, they were thinking that, the whole was important. Then they had a whole quote unquote renaissance and they started going so deep and so intricate that now they said, well, what really makes up the whole are the atoms. And so now we're looking so in that we've lost sight of what the bigger picture is. And so that's sometimes the piece that we're fighting against, right? Folks always want to diagnose they want to look at, well, this is what's happening right now. But understand that when our bodies get to a place where disease has set in, dis-ease has been riding us for a while. That's just the way that it is. It's the thing we didn't say. It's the person that we, I like to be peaceful, but sometimes you need to cuss people out because in that moment that you didn't say what you were supposed to say, your body has now held on to it.
Right. And then you're holding on to angst. You're holding on to worry and stress. And yes.
And then it's affecting our kidneys, or it's affecting, our stomachs, or now we can't sleep, or, and then what happens is it keeps going. And remember, our brain is our first apothecary. So you've buried that and it's like, well, and you've told yourself, it's okay, I got to keep going. But it's buried that thing in our bodies and in our minds. And now it's coming out as disease. It's coming out as failure. It's coming out as, we all always tell people like our hearts are so important because we have our physical heart and then we have our etheric heart, our heart brain. Both of them do very important things for the body. They keep us in flow. So the minute we have a blockage, especially in our heart space, guess what happens next? People start suffering with heart pain and blockages, and they need heart surgery. And all of that stuff they're connected to each other. So again, we have this thing where we're no longer looking at the whole. And because we're not looking at the whole, we're missing the important parts that could really be healing others. And the other piece is to really say, I don't consider myself a healer. I really consider myself a person who helps to activate others' healing, right? Because we all heal ourselves. We all have the ability to, as taught in Kikongo tradition, we have the ability to heal ourselves. It's just the fact that from time to time we're out of balance. And so our healing abilities for ourselves may have be lower or have been deactivated. And so we need assistance from others to kind of help get that energy forward. And sometimes it's advice on what to eat. Sometimes it's advice on what to do. Sometimes it's advice on who to hang out with or what we should kind of, put into our daily routine. Sometimes it's flower essences. Sometimes it's taking a bath. Sometimes it's eating sometimes it's diffusing a specific oil. I tell people all the time, sometimes you need to just come home and diffuse that and you're going to feel better. I always tell people, you can't smell an orange and not be happy. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have so many people walking around in the world and they have them on all types of, medications. And I'm like, how about giving them an orange and letting them go sit in the sun? Let's start there first. Let's see if that will start to replenish and help them with some of these angst that they're having. So we can't knock these things, and not to say that there aren't some really big issues as well. But I think that what you brought up is this idea of teamwork. And part of it that we have to recognize is that, the way in which, like we said with the Black midwives, it's not set up to be a team. So sometimes we got to kind of create our teams ourselves. And it doesn't mean that you completely extract yourself from Western medicine, but you do have a team of people that you trust and people who will continue to give you really great advice that's for you and not for the other person, because everybody's vessel is different. So to understand that your vessel and my vessel may look the same and have similar things, but they're very different.
Right. The story, right. The experience, what's behind the facade. And so I want to hone this in and shift to just the end of this chapter, because there are many more chapters. but you are actually part of the first part of this book of who's on your team. This is just
Mhm.
like my little theme of who's on your team. And so I will say this whenever I'm speaking to a person who is a part of the holistic sphere. People can say who their PCP is,
Mhm.
and you might actually know their your PCP's telephone number, right? Your primary care physician. People can call the name of their dentist, and they probably know the telephone number. Past that, who else is on your team? Who else can take care and address? And not that you go to your PC. If you go to your PCP, that's fine, and get a referral to
Mhm.
another specialist. That's great. But those are the people who are part of your team. But your team can also include someone who is a Reiki specialist,
Mhm.
someone who is an acupuncturist or a massage
Mhm.
therapist, or both.
Mhm.
Someone who does deal in flower essences. Someone who does deal in gut health, right? And who's like a colon
Nutrition.
hygienist, right? Let's not even go down there, right? But we need to. So all of these people are someone who just deals in, let's say, peaceful emotional balance, whatever term or title you want to give that. But Renee, you just gave all of these, I almost want to call them prescriptions, but prescriptions that could come from a loved one, an elder, someone
Mhm.
who is a holistic practitioner. Like, you see some activity that just don't look quite right, and you may just say, go have an orange and sit in the sun. Now, if that person is open enough at that moment,
Mhm.
they may be willing to hear, not just hear, but to receive and then go and do that thing.
Mhm.
Of course, if the person is closed up, then they're not like, I'm not doing that. Give me
Mhm.
something that's in a bottle, or like something that, not to shade other medicinal practices, but
Right.
it's interesting that people have been trained to put their faith in a spherical or oblong, white coated or someone color coded thing, and shun the thing that existed way before that thing in that bottle that comes out of the ground. It's very interesting. I know for a lot of people it's heart wrenching.
Mhm.
And so to say, hey, have a green salad or have a green drink
Mhm.
something that has just been juiced, versus drinking something that has no color coordination to the thing that you actually are supposed to be drinking. I always think of grape soda. I always think of grape soda and how purple it is. But
Right.
if you take grapes
Fruit.
and you juice them,
They don't look like that.
you don't look nothing like that. So, and it's a laughing matter because yes, laughter is good for the soul. But here it is. We're just talking about one example, and that's flower essences, and how flower essences, the life force, the essential spirit of the plant that flowers, and as you said, that has memory, that has power, that has um, an energy that no other thing alive, let's say,
Mhm.
and reintroducing it or reconnecting it to your physical body, the emotions, the soul can make a shift. And I am not, what was that commercial that says, the hair, remember the hair club for men?
Yes.
What was the line? It was like, I'm not just like promoting it, I'm a client or something
I'm a
like that.
client or something. Yeah.
Right. And so I was interested in this because, and here's like the story. I actually took flower essences a couple of years ago, and it was from uh what did you say her name was? I just forgot it.
Lindsay.
Lindsay. It
Lindsay.
was from Lindsay.
Mhm.
Someone heard me talking about something, and so I'm actually gonna give Khadijah, so Mama Khadijah, and I'm gonna send this to her because she's not watching right now, but she's gonna watch this. I s- talking to Khadijah, something and she, I think you need to have a conversation. And I was like, what? And she said, no, just go talk to her. And I was like, what's going on? And then I spoke to her and she said, oh, she talked about flower essences. And here it is. I'm like this. What? What? I don't think this guy, nope, no. And she talked to me and we talked and I was like, all right, fine. Day one, I took the little drops and I was like, okay, what's the big deal? Day two, day three, I said, what's in that thing? And I had to call her and I was like, listen, what you put in there? What's in there? What's in there? And she's just like, but how do you feel? And I, of course, I had my journal and I had to record things. And that was very powerful. That was very transformative. And child, I was like moved. I said, well, if I didn't believe in it before, I believe in it now. I still can't tell you exactly like what was in it that made that shift, but I literally felt a shift. I felt like an unpacking. So if I said that I was stuck, I felt like a release. And there wasn't anything different that let's say I ate or my sleeping was different or my movements were different, meaning like where I was going or the company that I was keeping in essence. It wasn't anything different in that regard. It was just this one different essence that I took. And I was like, I guess I'm going to have to look into this a little bit. So on that note, let's just make sure that people know, again, how to get in touch with you. Again, this will live on a number of different platforms because you're going to take this link and I'm sure you're going to drop it on your side of social media, on the gram. Have a ball. Invite more people over here. But you have actually started out this new sort of focus for myself, which has to do with wellness and holistic practitioners, which, I've done my little dabbling in my investigative reporting and I'm loving what I'm learning because it is like the hidden thing that has been taken away or shifted to the side. And I'm very glad that people, again, all the diaspora are bringing it back to light and putting it front and center and saying, yes, it's not either or. It's both and. It's both and. And if we're going to address the whole person, then even your PCP still has to refer you out to other people because they're like they're the generalist, right? They are the general practitioner. They have to then send you out to different people based on what you say, what shows up in your system, or what is manifesting, or what is like creating angst. And then they say, okay, hey, maybe go see the cardiologist if you're talking about palpitation. Go see a GI specialist if you're saying that you're having like you can't digest things as well as you used to. Go, you have back issues. Okay, go see someone to do physical therapy, and then hopefully they'll refer you to someone who is like a massage therapist, acupuncturist, like all that. But if we ask these questions in the beginning, well, let's look at the whole self. And when you said shaman, what is the parallel to a shaman? If I'm not from a community where there are shamans, would that be my minister? Would that be my pastor? Would that be my spiritual guide?
Yeah, I think that you would, on your team would also be your spiritual guide, right? Because we have mental health, we have physical health, we have emotional health, we have financial health, we have all these different types of health. And so there are very specific people who are called to all of these different types of health. Again, the idea that plants have the ability to have and work and heal in our physical self, right? So like you said, you eat the green salad, or you know that if I put oregano as a diffuser, it helps, with me being able to breathe and to get rid of any kind of viral things that have been sitting with me throughout my day, right? So you have that piece, but then all of the plants also have folklore and they have stories behind them, right? So yarrow being the great protector, right? That people would take yarrow or rosemary, wear them behind their ears or wear them in a pouch specifically yarrow has been said to be the one that would go out with all of the warriors. They would always have them in their pouch. One, because it was said to be a protective herb, but two, if they were going to get hurt or cut, you can crush it into a dust and then rub it over the wound, and it would help to close the wound pretty much instantaneously.
Wow.
So, these, we think of them as, I always tell people, like, think of the hierarchy as humans being at the top, but we're really a part of a cycle that's actually in a reciprocal relationship with plants, because
Love
if
it.
they were to die, we really wouldn't be here either, because they have something that they just literally give us, but they give us so much more if we're really paying attention. And I think the other piece that we lose sight of is that, you were talking about people would rather go to the things that are in the pills that are in the bottle. But I want them to realize that many of the things that are in the bottle, they actually came from plants. They're getting their derivative. So the first derivative of what they believe is actually helping you is coming from a plant. All
Right.
the other stuff that they put in it is probably not helping you. But the initial thing that made them say, oh my gosh, if we distill this all the way down to this and we see these properties happening, are coming 9 times out of 10 from plants. It's some plant that they got from some back, I always like to say, from back country or back road, up on the hill, or
Some
down
hill
next
country.
or somewhere that someone discovered, like, oh wow, this has anti-cancerous properties. That's where they're getting it from.
Right. You didn't get it from a lab. You originally got it from somebody's backyard.
It
Somebody's
started in someone's
backyard,
backyard.
somebody's like field, and I'm talking about like a mining field, like some mineral that comes from some rock that's sitting on the side of some mountain, So beautiful. This has definitely been an amazing conversation. And I'm saying now you will be back because we need to have a redo. We need to have a part two. And I'm sure that there are places on your side of the social media lands that I'll probably pop onto and see as well. This has been amazing. This has been Renee K. Smith of Akika Flower Essences. She is a beautiful soul. She is available for consultation. She is available to design your own, let's just say, special combination. Special
Yeah.
combination. I was going to give like a little another word, but we're going to keep it holy. Your special combination according to where you are, the current state that you're in, what you're trying to work through, work on, work over, work around, push through, climb over, and it starts with that thing that was designed, and then according to the story, or one of the stories that we live by on this earth in the days of creation, during one of the first 3 days, right? One of the first 4 days of the creation of this world, and that was before humans, according to the creation story,
Right.
were designed. So let's look to our plants, let's look to our flowers as being a part of our wellness, what we call our kitchen cabinet, right?
Yeah.
Our healing cabinet, our wellness cabinet, and that lives within our home. Before you go out somewhere else, start with what you have, and that could very well be in the pot in the pot in your house. It could be in the garden outside of your home, or somewhere in a park nearby. Peace and blessings. This is a Learn to Grow You moment where I plant seeds to help you grow. Thank you so much, Sister Renee, for being a guest on the digital couch. We love and adore you. And we say goodnight to everyone else. We will see you all next week for another episode. Please look out for the notifications, and I will see you next time.